Eric Dubay is not happy. He's not happy because people keep calling Flat Earth stupid. And you know what? I have to agree with him. Stupid is not a good word for Flat Earth. Nonsensical, ridiculous and laughable are much, much better. Hello all and welcome along to another video with me, Simon Dan. Thank you very much for joining me. Before we begin today, a quick reminder that this channel now uploads daily. So if you don't want to miss these epic Flat Earth takedowns, then please do subscribe now and make sure you got your notifications bell turned on. Over 50% of you do not. So if you want to, please do. Thank you very much. Right, on with today's video then, and the Crown Prince of Flat Earth, Eric Dubay. He wants to speak to us all about how people call Flat Earth stupid. This should be very enlightening. Here we go.
One of the most common phrases I have heard incessantly repeated by neophytes since reviving the International Flat Earth Research Society is, "Flat Earth is stupid."
Yes, you heard that right, the International Flat Earth Research Society. Basically an online forum where Flat Earth friends can take part in an orgy of confirmation bias. That sentence went a bit far, didn't it? Sorry.
Even though it was historically the consensus cosmology among literally every ancient culture, in modern times, the concept of a flat Earth has become synonymous with stupidity.
This is a sweeping generalization from Eric here. While some early cultures did believe in Flat Earth, many did not, especially as observational evidence accumulated. Dubay wants to create this fantasy where modern science has silenced ancient truth. But the truth is, modern science confirmed what clever people figured out centuries ago. Earth is round, always has been.
Calling someone a flat earther is now meant to insult their intelligence, and carries the connotation of being incredibly ignorant. But is this an accurate stereotype?
Well, sort of. You can be an intelligent person, yet still not understand concepts of science. That is totally normal, by the way. However, Flat Earth belief doesn't carry a negative stereotype because of some media conspiracy. It carries it because it rejects reality in the face of overwhelming evidence. Evidence that Flat Earthers just wave away and then retreat into YouTube rabbit holes and pseudoscience. So yes, calling someone a Flat Earther is often used to suggest they're ignoring reality, because that's exactly what the movement does.
Is the idea of a level, stationary Earth really the epitome of idiocy? And are people who promote it really so utterly unintelligent?
They can be, for sure. People who promote Flat Earth have a heady mix of misunderstanding of science and physics, coupled with a strong distaste for anything mainstream.
Modern mainstream science treats the current conclusions of cosmology and astronomy as settled, set-in-stone subjects with little room for dissent.
Science isn't afraid of dissent, it thrives on it. But that dissent has to come with evidence, with predictive power, and with something that actually explains the world better. Flat Earth fails on all those counts. That is why scientists dismiss it. Not because they're dogmatic, but because it simply doesn't hold up.
The heliocentric globe theory is never admitted in academia as being theoretical, but rather taken for granted as a cornerstone of modern scientific knowledge. If Earth is not a spinning ball revolving around the sun, however, then nearly the entirety of modern science and the majority of modern scientists are proven to be either frauds or fools.
Well, it's a bloody good job they aren't wrong then, isn't it? And yes, the globe is a cornerstone of modern science, because it's been tested, confirmed and refined over centuries. Flat Earth, on the other hand, has not.
Therefore, questioning the shape of the Earth is the equivalent of scientific blasphemy, and flat earthers the equivalent of scientific heretics. Is this treatment truly warranted, though? Testing ideas, challenging assumptions, and furthering knowledge through evidence and critical scrutiny is the very definition of the scientific method. Science encourages and requires dissent to clarify conclusions, and questioning established scientific norms is precisely how new discoveries are made.
But real scientific dissent, as I said, is based on evidence. It starts with data, then it builds models, makes predictions, then of course passes tests. Flat Earth beliefs do none of that. No credible Flat Earther has ever presented a model that works. They cannot simultaneously explain how GPS works, how they can accurately predict eclipses, account for time zones, star positions in both hemispheres, or even pass a basic experiment under controlled conditions. Science absolutely encourages dissent. It really does, when it's informed. But repeating debunked claims and ignoring data, and shouting "NASA lies" isn't dissent. It's denial.
One of the forefathers of the heliocentric globe theory, Galileo himself, said, quote, "In the sciences, the authority of thousands of opinions is not worth as much as one tiny spark of reason in an individual man." In other words, science is not a democracy, and scientific authority is not derived from majority opinion or expert decision, but rather from reason, evidence, and experiments.
But flat earthers don't bring that tiny spark of reason. They bring recycled YouTube talking points, a misunderstanding of basic physics, and an unwillingness to test their claims against basic reality. Simple as that. It's just definitely not the same.
Globe defenders often deny or downplay the amount of legitimate criticism presented by skeptics, but it is undeniable that there are a large number of valid objections to the heliocentric globe theory. Casually denying something deemed stupid and deferring instead to expert opinions without doing your own due diligence in carefully considering all arguments commits two logical fallacies. Firstly, mocking, joking, or otherwise dismissing something as dumb without presenting a logical reason why commits the fallacy of appeal to ridicule.
But the thing is, it's not ridicule instead of evidence, it's ridicule after the evidence has been ignored by flat earth. That is the key difference here. And appealing to expert consensus is not a fallacy. It's what you do when the experts have measurable working proof, and the other side has a badly drawn map and a distrust of NASA.
Secondly, blindly believing in something simply because all experts agree commits the fallacy of appeal to authority. When it comes to many supposed proofs of the heliocentric globe theory, such appeals to authority are often implicit without being readily recognized. For example, citing NASA images or astronauts' testimony as proof of a globe are not admissible as scientific evidence because they are not readily repeatable. The average person will never experience the frame of reference required to confirm or deny such claims, so quoting them as proof of a globe is invalid and unsound reasoning.
The idea that it's not scientific because the average person can't repeat it is nonsense. You can't repeat the Large Hadron Collider experiments at home, can you? But their data is still valid. You can't build your own Hubble Space Telescope, but the images are still real. There are several space agencies, not just NASA, that have taken photos of Earth from space. So many. That right there is repeatability.
In my experience, most people calling flat Earth stupid actually have no idea what the term flat Earth implies, or what claims flat earthers actually make.
Well, actually, Eric, I think you'll find that I'm very well versed in flat Earth claims, and I know exactly what they imply. In fact, you could argue I could be one of the most qualified people on the planet when it comes to that.
For instance, many of them make wild assumptions about some kind of disk world floating suspended in space, and ask asinine tongue-in-cheek questions like, where's the edge? What holds up the disk in space? Or why isn't there perpetual daylight everywhere on a flat Earth?
Yeah, those questions are funny, to be fair. Sorry.
Such comments show that these detractors have not done the slightest bit of research into the subject they are condemning, and thus reveal what they really find stupid are their own errant assumptions. By mixing their heliocentric outer space globe world indoctrination with false assumptions about what flat Earth actually means, they decide it must be dumb, and then close their minds to the possibility.
Yes, but if you strip away all the silly questions and just focus on the absolute core belief of a flat earther, which is the Earth we live on is flat, forget gravity, forget the sun, forget all of that, when you boil it down, you are wrong on a fundamental level.
Compare this with the average flat earther, all of whom received the exact same heliocentric globe education in school. But rather than assuming an alternative cosmology must be stupid or impossible, remained open-minded enough to engage with the material and learn a new perspective. Every flat earther I know fully believed the heliocentric globe theory taught at school and shown on television before doing their due diligence in researching the subject. Only after reading several books, viewing a number of documentaries, and then going out to personally perform their own experiments, do most people begin to realize that Earth is not a spinning ball.
Flat earthers love to call themselves open-minded truth seekers, but real open-mindedness means you're willing to change your mind when the evidence demands it. That is not what happens here. Instead, they'll cherry-pick sources, they'll ignore contradictory data, and then call all of that research. If you run an experiment and it still proves you wrong, but then you still cling to that belief, that's not open-mindedness, that's dogma.
In order to learn anything new, it is an essential skill to temporarily suspend disbelief while taking in alternative information. Far from stupid, this ability is actually a key mark of intelligence. As F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote, "The truest sign of intelligence is the ability to entertain two contradictory ideas simultaneously."
The ability to entertain two ideas is of course valuable, but eventually reality will force you to choose one, based on which idea best matches the facts. Scientists do this all the time. They test competing theories and keep the one that works. However, flat earthers don't entertain two ideas, they reject one outright, the globe, no matter how much evidence supports it, and they cling to the other, flat earth, no matter how much it fails.
And as Aristotle noted, it is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without immediately accepting or rejecting it. The majority of people calling flat Earth stupid have never read a book on the subject. If they had, and were humble and honest enough with themselves, they would be forced to admit that there are undeniably a large number of legitimate criticisms and unanswered questions surrounding the heliocentric globe theory.
No, they wouldn't be forced to admit that, because most people understand that some aspects of physics and science are simply beyond their personal expertise, and that's completely fine. Not everyone needs to be an astrophysicist, especially when it comes to recognising if something's backed by solid evidence. What flat earthers do, though, is they misunderstand the science, or worse, convince themselves that they somehow know better than people with actual scientific degrees in a field of study that they've studied their whole life.
When I first began researching the subject myself, I was repeatedly surprised by the intelligence of the flat Earth authors and the cogency of their arguments.
Which is an excellent example of what I've just said.
19th century authors like Samuel Rowbotham, Thomas Winship, William Carpenter, Albert Smith, Lady Blunt, David Wardlaw Scott, and many others wrote extensively and convincingly on the subject, sparking a decades-long worldwide debate about the shape of the Earth around the turn of the century.
And every one of those people are the equivalent of the Eric Dubays and Mark Sargents of today. They didn't have YouTube back then, so they self-published books and pamphlets instead.
Personally, I have an IQ of 143, graduated with honors from university with a double BA in philosophy and English, and am now a published author with books translated into 30 languages.
Yes, philosophy and English, two subjects that certainly mean you'll understand physics, right? 143 IQ or not, you are still wrong about the shape of the Earth. Is Eric basically saying here, I have a high IQ, therefore I am correct?
Since writing my own books on the subject and interacting with thousands of readers, I have continued to be surprised at the high average intelligence of fellow flat earthers contacting me. Conversely, the average globe believers have continued to disappoint me with their constant unintelligent insults, snarky sarcasm, haughty hubris, errant assumptions, logical fallacies, lack of common sense, and closed-minded conclusions.
Wow, that was pure projection, wasn't it? Talk about a list of flat earther traits.
Regardless of where you currently stand on the subject, we should all be able to agree that questioning science is quite literally how you do science. It is not stupid to challenge established scientific norms, and in fact, that is the only way scientific progress is ever made.
Questioning science is how we move forward, absolutely. But questioning alone is not enough. In science, you have to test, gather evidence, and accept results, even if they're uncomfortable, and Flat Earth doesn't do that. It questions, ignores the answers, and then calls it progress. Well, what an interesting view from Eric that was there. Basically saying that Flat Earthers are not dumb, but we are. Crazy. Crazy, crazy opinion, Eric. Thank you all for watching as always. Please do let me know in the comments what you thought of Eric's little monologue there. As I say, we're all done and dusted for another one. Please do like and subscribe if you enjoyed this one. We're on daily videos now, as I said at the beginning, so make sure you subscribe and got the bell notification on. I've been Simon Dan. Have yourselves a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow for the 5 stupidest things that moon landing deniers say. See you then.